Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I want to say good morning again and welcome to the Government Contracting Opportunities for Business Workshop. I'm Jim Gambardella, the Small Business Administration's Area 6 Director for Government Contracting. And joining me as panelists today are four very esteemed colleagues. We have Michael, and I know I'm going to mispronounce this, Aguillio. Aguillio. And I'm sorry, Michael. And Michael is the Customer Liaison Officer with the State of California's Department of General Services Procurement Division. We also have with us Chantel Hoad. Chantel is the Programs Director for the California Asian Chamber of Commerce and the Executive Director of the Small Business Transportation Resource Center for the Department of Transportation. And then on the other side of Michael, we have Gran Lum. Gran is the Small Business Administration's Hub Zone Program Director. He's been with the SBA since August 2010, and he's a local boy. He's actually on leave currently from UC Hastings, where he is a clinical professor of law and the director of the Center for Negotiations and Dispute Resolution. And then to Gran's left, we have Joseph Messanian. And Joseph is the Deputy Director of the Department of Defense's Office of Small Business Programs in Washington, D.C. So you won't see their names on neither Gran's or Joseph's name on the agenda. They're late additions, but we were very happy to get people of their caliber here to be part of this presentation. So we're hoping that this is going to be an interactive experience. So after we give you some short presentations about each of us and each of our organization, it's going to be an opportunity for you to ask us questions that you may have about doing business with the government at all levels, local level, state level, and federal level. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Small Business Administration and what it is that we do. And at the SBA, we're always talking about the 3 C's of capital, counseling, and contracting. Access to capital obviously comes through SBA loans, and there's a session, I believe it's next door, that's going to be talking about that and explaining to businesses and individuals the type of loan programs that we have that can assist them. Counseling and training courses come from the SBA's 2,000-person staff and 14,000 counseling partners. So there are lots of resources out there to assist you or any small business that are interested in learning more about doing business with the government and taking yourself down that road. And obviously, while the other workshops are going on, our primary purpose here is the one that's focused on is contracting. Now, at the SBA, we work in partnership with federal agencies to help to ensure that at least 23% of the more than $500 billion each year goes to small business. Federal contracting, from our perspective, in fact from anyone's perspective, is a win-win proposition because small businesses get the revenue they need to grow their revenues and to create jobs. And obviously the benefit to the federal government is that it gets the chance to work with some of the most responsive, innovative, and nimble companies in the United States, often with a direct line to the small business's CEO. Now, over the last 2 years, we've headed in the right direction as far as getting contract dollars to small businesses. Instead of 23%, we put 31% of the Recovery Act contracts in the hands of small business. And overall, we saw an increase to about 22% in fiscal year 2009 for small business in the overall government's contracting programs. But obviously, we can do better, and we need to do better. So the question is how do we create even more of these win-wins through our work at SBA and in partnership with all of you? Because obviously small businesses are a key part and essential part of the government being able to get the types of goods and services that it needs to ensure that it meets its missions. So let's start with the basics. All of the federal agencies know about the 23% statutory rule, and that's the government-wide goal to contract awards to small business. And they know that each of their own agencies have specific goals that contribute to that overall effort. And we at the SBA work very closely with those federal agency personnel every day to try to help them find new ways and opportunities to award more contracts to small businesses. In addition, we help them reach the other sub-goals that Congress has rolled out. For example, 5% of the overall contracts awarded by the government are supposed to go to small disadvantaged businesses, 3% to firms in our Hub Zone program, and Grant is going to speak a little bit more about that when it's his turn, and 3% to firms in our Service Disabled Veteran-owned small business program, and additionally 5% of federal contracts are supposed to go to women-owned businesses. As you can imagine, there's a lot of work that's necessary to meet these goals. This means we have frequent and candid conversations with procurement officers and agency leaders to make sure they are doing all they can to award contracts to small businesses. Two major events, and some of this is going to be a repeat or a reiteration of what we've heard both in the general session and then in the most recent plenary session. And we've had two events that happened recently that give us more tools to meet those goals. The first was the recommendations from the President's Task Force on Small Business Contracting, which came out in early September. The second was the Small Business Jobs Bill, which was signed into law by President Obama on September 27th. And there were 19 provisions specifically related to small business contracting in the Jobs Act. And I just have to tell you, I just want to digress for a moment, is that I've been in government contracting almost 30 years, and we've had more good things happen for small business within the last year to 18 months than I can remember happening in the prior 30 years. So I think we're really making some good progress. But I would like to talk about some of the provisions of the Jobs Act that I think are particularly of interest to small businesses. First of all, we can now ensure parity. The government requires equal treatment or parity across our federal contracting programs. Before the law passed, there was some confusion about whether one program gets priority over the others. There is no confusion anymore. Contracting officers are now free to choose among businesses that are owned by women and service-disabled veterans, as well as businesses participating in the Hub Zone and the 8A business development programs. Secondly, we were successful in eliminating the competitiveness demonstration program, and which, if you think about it, it sounds nice just based on its name, but in essence, it really did hurt small businesses in a number of industry because it eliminated set-asides in the areas such as construction, landscaping, pest control, and other industries where small businesses were particularly prevalent. And we know that small businesses, despite the fact of there not being set-asides, won $24 billion in contracts in these industries in fiscal year 2009. However, by eliminating this program, agencies are going to be able to build on that, and we feel that the government's going to make substantial gains in those industries in the coming years. Third, and this is something that's really important too, is contracting offices can now reserve multiple award contracts for small businesses, including contracts awarded by the General Services Administration's Federal Supply Service. Prior to this, if it was a multiple award contract open to businesses both large and small, they competed equally for those contract opportunities. Now a contracting officer is going to have to take that extra step of looking at that requirement under that multiple award contract and saying, can small businesses perform these requirements? If that's so, that means that competition is going to be limited to small business concerns. So we think that this is going to be a big boon for small businesses because contracting officers love multiple award contracts. So we think that this is going to help them to get tools to make contract awards to those firms. By the way, I just want to interrupt for a second. There are sheets to ask questions. If you want to fill those out, and then we'll address the questions at the end of the session.
I think.
Oh,
I don't know
have
if
they
there's
been handed
actually
out?
going out or handing them out, but I know there is some up here.
Okay, so if there's anybody else, there are sheets available to you. And if we can get through those, obviously we'll take questions by the raising of hands. Fourth, the Jobs Act is going to help us root out fraud, waste, and abuse. The law will help us as the government to pursue firms that misrepresent themselves. I mean, we've had issues where businesses have claimed that they are small businesses, gotten contracts, and later on it comes to light that they are not small businesses. And obviously, that took away a contract opportunity from a legitimate small business concern. So the government can now claim that there was a presumption of loss. So that is that the government lost because of the fact that this business misrepresented itself and got a contract that should have been performed by small business. And fifth, and this is also important to small business, we've got the new rules and regulations that are going to allow us to hold federal large business prime contractors accountable for their subcontracting plans. If they don't meet their subcontracting plans, they're going to have to explain in writing why not. And what this is going to do is, in years past, there were situations where large businesses would get federal contracts, and as part of their proposal, they would identify small, minority, women-owned, and hub-zone firms that were going to be subcontractors to them. And then once they're awarded the contract, that seems to get pushed to the side, and they either pull all of the work in-house and do it with their own resources, or shop it around to other businesses that perhaps maybe will be working at a lower price. And obviously, that's not fair to small businesses who, because they're small, when they do spend bid and proposal costs, and it takes a lot of time to build those proposals that they provide to these large businesses, they're going through all those efforts and obviously not getting a contract. So the new rules and regulations are going to help to preclude those types of situations from happening in the future. Overall, many of the contracting-related pieces in this Jobs Act, including those that I mentioned, were formal recommendations that actually came from President Obama's task force on small business contracting. They released their report back in August. Both the task force and the Jobs Act will also help us move forward in other areas too, such as stronger workforce training for contracting officers. Again, contracting officers have a difficult job. There's lots of competing interests. They feel pressure from customers. They feel pressure from vendors. Obviously, they feel pressure from the Small Business Administration. And a lot of them are really unsure sometimes as to what it is that they should do. So this act and the task force recommendations are going to ensure that the contracting officers get the training specifically in small business contracting. I took the government's basic contracting course a number of years ago. It was a 160 hours course. I think 5 to 6 hours were devoted to small business. Now, obviously, we need to do more because we need to make the contracting officers appreciate more the value that small businesses bring to the table and the mechanisms that they have available to them to include small businesses in their contracting plans and programs. We're going to be implementing mentor-protege programs across the government, and we're going to increase agency accountability to meet the goals that I mentioned earlier. In addition, we're moving forward with some of the task force recommendations that weren't in the Jobs Act. For example, we're planning to enhance the website Federal Business Opportunities, which is the government-wide point of entry on business opportunities. We want it to serve as a one-source resource for upcoming contracting and subcontracting opportunities. And it will include a calendar of federal agency matchmaking and training events. We think with all of these tools that are coming from the Jobs Act and the task force, we're going to be able to provide more opportunities for small businesses to compete. And we've got measures that are going to be able to measure our accomplishments and our progress each step of the way. And that's why in 2010 we developed a new scorecard, a report card, if you will, which graded each agency on a scale of A to F, incorporating both prime contracting as well as subcontracting efforts. And as we all remember when we went to school, we were all proud to, bring home our A's and show our parents our report cards that way. But if there was an F or a D or maybe sometimes even a C, we were ashamed of ourselves. So this is going to create a greater awareness among the public of how well agencies are doing with regard to their small business goals, and hopefully that'll lead to increased performance on their part. So as you can see, we're taking some great steps forward to make more handshakes happen between small businesses and federal agencies. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that the contracts are getting in the right hands, and to that end, the SBA wants to make sure that we're a careful steward of taxpayer dollars. And that's my second point. We have to take steps to ensure that only eligible bona fide small businesses are participating in each of our programs, and that we're finding new ways to identify and eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. And we're very focused in these areas, and we have 3 steps in the process. On the front end, what we're doing is we want efficient and effective certification to allow only eligible firms to participate in our programs, and I'm sure Grant can speak a little bit more about some of the steps that they're taking back at SBA headquarters to make sure that we're properly doing this type of scrutiny. And to that end, we're re-engineering our Hub Zone certification program. We're working collaboratively with the Veterans Administration to strengthen accountability in the service-disabled veteran-owned small business program, and we are currently undertaking a major review of the 8A program to strengthen tools such as mentor-protege program to ensure that the program's benefits are going to the intended recipients. The second area of focus on eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse is to ensure they maintain compliance through our ongoing surveillance and monitoring. And again, I won't talk too much about this. I'm sure Grant will talk a little bit about the efforts that he and his staff are taking to make sure that only firms that are bona fide Hub Zone firms are participating in that program. The third area I want to focus with is that we're going to hold bad actors accountable. In the past, firms would falsely claim, or either sometimes it was through ignorance, but sometimes it was willful, that they were small businesses, they got contracts, and there really wasn't much in the way of consequences. But we are now going to refer those firms to the Office of Inspector General, and then that means we'll pursue suspension and debarment of the bad actors. And if it really is an egregious situation, we will refer those firms to the Justice Department for prosecution. So overall, we're not just content in making sure that there's more handshakes happening between small businesses and federal agencies. We want to make sure that the right handshakes are happening so that legitimate small businesses are getting the opportunities that Congress and the President intend for them. And before I close, I just want to say how proud we are to be finally rolling out the new women's contracting rule. This was one of the questions that was in the session that just took place. And as I mentioned earlier, the federal government is charged with putting at least 5% of federal contracts in the hands of small women-owned firms. With the Recovery Act, we actually put 5.5% of those contracts in their hands. That's nearly $2 billion, and obviously that's something we want to build on. Back in 2000, the Congress authorized the SBA to create a program to help more women-owned firms to get federal contracts. Unfortunately, over the past 10 years, it didn't happen. However, when President Obama took office, we decided that we were going to get the job done. That's why we've developed a strong rule based on data which identified 83 industries where women-owned firms are underrepresented. And to make sure we got it right when we were developing those rules, we reached out and got comments from approximately 1,000 women's leaders across the country to make sure that the rule was going to be a success. And we published that rule in October. Now, where it's at now is it's been over with the Federal Acquisition Committee. This is the group that actually makes the rule, puts it in the Federal Acquisition Regulation. And once that happens, we think that contracting officers are going to start using this set-aside program to the benefit of small businesses. That should be happening fairly soon. I don't have an exact date as to when that's going to happen, but I've been told that it's going to happen very shortly in the next month or two. But in closing, my commitment to you is this, that within the SBA, we're going to continue to work with federal agencies, reach out to small businesses, opening more contracting opportunities. And we're going to continue to help small businesses become federal contractors by giving them training and leveling the playing field where they need to compete. We're dedicated here, not only here today, but as we go forward. We have plenty of resources and resource partners available to help you. I would urge you to take advantage of that. Now, some of you may have been out to the SBA resource table, and there are two documents there that if you're really interested in federal contracting, you really need to go out and get those and take advantage of them. First is this document here. It's a guiding directory of doing business with the federal government. In the guide portion, we lay out a step-by-step process for small businesses to follow to become contract ready. We talk about registrations, certifications, things like DUNS numbers, and other things that you need to do before you can really go out and market yourself to the federal government. And then once you've taken those steps, what we've done is we've developed a directory of small business points of contacts at the federal agencies across the 11 western states, including Alaska, Hawaii, and Guam, that we cover from this office here. So you've done these steps. Now you want to go out and market yourself. So these are the people that you need to contact. We've given you names, telephone numbers, and email addresses. The other thing that I think will be key to you, particularly if you're new to the process and you want to learn about the different programs, is what we've done is we've created this useful links guide. And what it is a series of website addresses and addresses to federal agencies and other sites that give you a lot of good information on doing business with the government. We think that these are two really key tools. It'll help give you a jump start in getting started. So I will hope that you will pick those up. And just one other thing before I don't want to be a time hog here, so I'm from New York, I talk fast, so I guess I need to talk even faster. As I mentioned earlier, is that SBA works with approximately 14,000 resource partners across the country. Out in the general area there's an SBA table, and we have a list of our resource partners, and they've done a real good job. So if you're in the San Francisco area, you have the list there of the resources available to you. If you're out in the East Bay, we've listed those resource partners, and most of you are probably from this area, so we have these partners here in the South Bay. So again, you're not in this alone. This is a self-marketing program, and in large part, your success depends on how well you market yourself and what you do to make your firm a viable contractor. But the important thing to remember is that you're not there alone. If you hit a snag, you have a problem, there's something that you need to discuss, you need help on, please reach out to us, either directly through the SBA or through our resource partners. So I'm starting to get a little hoarse, and I know you're probably tired of hearing my New York accent because I've seen a few people wince when I say some of my words. So I will move off and turn the program over to Chantel.
Thanks, Jim. Before I get started, I know that your colleague just brought in some of the information that you were just mentioning, so they're now in the back of the room. So.
Okay, great. So please, if you haven't picked one up, please do take one before you leave today.
Thanks again, Jim. My name is Chantel Hoad. I'm the Executive Director of the Small Business Transportation Resource Center, which is, I also am the Programs Director with the California Asian Chamber of Commerce. We are actually contracted through the Department of Transportation to be the Small Business Transportation Resource Center. I know that's a lot of acronyms, and I'm going to start throwing them around here in a minute. So, DOT's mission is to serve the United States by ensuring a fast, safe, efficient, accessible, and convenient transportation system that meets our virtual national interests and enhance the quality of life of the American people today and in the future. DOT has a division called Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization. That is actually who contracts the Small Business Transportation Resource Centers. And I'm going to refer to them moving forward as OSDBU. And OSDBU's mission is to ensure that small and disadvantaged business policies and goals of the Secretary of Transportation are implemented in a fair and efficient and an effective manner to serve small and disadvantaged businesses throughout DOT and the nation by providing opportunities, technical assistance, and financial services. The objectives of the OSDBU is to advocate for small businesses, create opportunities at the local, state, and federal level, provide technical and financial services. The Southwest SBTRC, which is the California Asian Chamber of Commerce, is headquartered in Sacramento. We serve small disadvantaged businesses in Arizona, California, Hawaii, and Nevada. We provide assistance with OSDB programs, such as our short-term lending program. We're currently doing a Women and Girls Internship program, and in the fall we're going to start a bonding education training program. The SBTRC out of Sacramento, serving California, also provides counseling, technical assistance, training, We also disseminate information from DOT, and that have the potential to do business with public and private entities in the transportation industry. I encourage you to strongly visit our youconnecthere.com. I'll repeat that. It's called youconnecthere.com. It's a website where our SBTRC information is housed. You can build a free profile. Once you do, you'll have access to contract opportunities, information about DBE certification, technical assistance services, financial assistance services. There's a calendar of events on there that talks about all the training and workshops that are available to different small businesses. And they'll also be included in our monthly newsletter that all the information about DOT and the SBTRC is sent out. I want to just take a few minutes to talk about one of our major programs that we have going on right now. It's called our short-term lending program. The short-term lending program provides a loan guarantee on a revolving line of credit. The primary collateral is receivables from transportation contracts. Participants can apply for renewal for up to 5 years. Maximum loan amount is $750,000. Subcontract at any tier in transportation-related field. There's an application fee of $150 that's paid to the bank. The interest rate is based on Wall Street Journal variable rate. And I know I'm going through this quickly, and we actually have a booth out in just before you went into the Galileo room, I believe it was, where the general session was happening. The SBTRC has a booth, and we have many literature and brochures about this program. And I'll also give you the website at the end, so if you want more information, we have some resources at our table available for you. The STLP eligibility requirements is you need to be certified as a DBE under DOT certification guidelines, or certified by the U.S. Small Business Administration 8A program, Hub Zone, disabled veteran, or service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. You must have a current contract with U.S. DOT mode or state local entity funded by U.S. DOT. It must be current on your federal taxes. The short-term loan can be used for maintenance, rehabilitation, restructuring, improvements, or revitalization of any of the nation's transportation modes, public, commercial, federal, state, or local agency. The funds may not be used for contract mobilization, equipment purchases, or any other long-term uses, refinancing of existing debt, payment of non-current taxes, or payments to stockholders. The program is administered through the DOT OSDBU through cooperative agreements between DOT and several STPL participating lenders. Currently in California, we're working with California Bank and Trust and California National Bank in LA. Loan documentation and financing transactions are performed by the bank. You would actually go through, I'll actually give that to you in just a minute. The loan application process turnaround is about 30 to 60 days, excluding the packaging and the assistance you get from the SBTRC. You can get this application, you can actually download the complete application and checklist at the OSDBU website, which is www.osdbu.dot.gov. Once you complete and download the application and prepare all the documentation, you would then submit that to the SBTRC, which is myself and my colleague Matt Sumida. We would then review it, and then we would then send it on to the bank. Again, the two banks that we're currently working with is, again, the California Bank and Trust and the California National Bank. Myself, Chantel Hoad, and Matt Sumida are currently the staff of two that are running the SBTRC office in Sacramento. But if you have any questions or concerns or would like to talk to us more, we will be out at the booth later on today, throughout the day, if you want to stop by and give us any questions. And I also have my business cards up here if you all want to take one once we're all done. Thank you.
Thanks, Chantel. Okay, we'll turn it over to Mike from the Division of General Services with the State of California.
Welcome. What is it, morning still?
No, it's afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'm really thankful that I was asked to be here today because helping small business and service-disabled business enterprises is one of my major passions, and that's the reason why I'm here. The state of California has two preference programs. A lot of people don't know about these programs, but they're small business and service-disabled veteran business enterprise programs, certification programs. If you happen to be able to get certified in these areas, there's a lot of benefits for you as businesses. One is you get a 5% bid preference. So as a certified small business in the state of California, you can actually have a 5% higher bid than non-certified small businesses and or any other businesses and still win at that percentage. So I mean, there's a big benefit there. On top of that, in law, we have what we call the Prompt Payment Act. So if we, the state, and I say I, but I'm not the state, just make sure that we're clear because she's filming me over here. If we don't pay you within 45 days of receiving your invoice, we now pay you, we have been paying you late penalty payments if you are certified in these programs. So I mean, you get an extra benefit there. On top of that, we have now what we call a small business and DVBE option. And what that is if you're in our database and I go out to buy anything that the state may need in regards to commodities and or services, I go into my database. And all I do now is I just get 2 quotes. I can now enter into a contract up to $250,000 with you. So $250,000. I mean, it's that simple, but you have to be certified in our database. The thing that we also have is, for you, is that now DGS, the state of California, and we're the biggest buying arm, we're the 800-pound gorilla in the state. When we go to purchase anything, we have a new executive order that basically states that anything that we buy for anybody in the state of California, we have to go to that database first. It's a buy first policy now. So we're really trying to get small businesses involved in doing business with the state of California. And Jim said it earlier. If you businesses are doing well, especially in the state of California, the economy gets better. The state does better. Why? Is because you are growing, you're hiring more employees. Everybody benefits by you as businesses in the state, by growing your business. And we're trying very hard. As a matter of fact, just this December, we had a statewide small business council, and along with the members here in DGS, and what we have is, we have a goal. The state of California last year, of course, spent a lot less than the federal government did. We spent $9 billion. 25% of that $9 billion is relatively set aside for small businesses. That's our goal, 25% of that. We have a 3% with disabled veteran business enterprises. As of this December, we met as a group, and we are now petitioning the new governor of the state of California to raise that percentage from 25% to 50% of all the money. On top of that, we're looking at trying to get the 3% as disabled veterans, double that to 6%. So we are really trying to get you, as businesses, involved in state government. Now, depending on what you sell, or your products and or services, they might not be a big fit for us, but you really got to look. Because the whole idea is when you do business, you really got to do your homework as well. Now, I'm advocating that you try to do business with the state of California. I'm trying to tell you right now not to put all your eggs in one basket. Because, as everything else in businesses, you really have to be diversified, especially in this kind of economy. But what I'm saying is that the state is really trying very hard to make sure that small businesses and disabled veteran business enterprise really grows and develops in this state. My job is to help all of you and any businesses that want information from me to find where to find contracts. And what I've done for you today is I'm only going to be here for about an hour and 15 minutes. But as I leave, I put on the very back counter this brochure, and it's really going to help you out. It's how to do business with state government in 5 easy steps. We walk you through how to get certified. We walk you through what is the benefits. We tell you what you need to be in regards to eligibility requirements. Really simple. The state of California, in regards to eligibility requirements, unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, depends on how you look at it, we just recognize small businesses, period. We don't recognize women-owned, minority-owned. It's just relatively small business. We put everybody in one category. Prop 106 in the state of California really got rid of a lot of the ethnics. 209? Is it 209? Thank you very much for correcting me. 209, I got that on film. And I want to come back. Hey, he said. In any case, what I try to do is I brought this brochure for you. How many are you currently certified with the state of California as a certified small business? One, the two of you. I recognize you. Two. We got that's for you two. Big benefit. For the rest of you, unfortunately, you're not in my database, so I wouldn't look at you. That's one of the biggest things for the small. We actually have, from my understanding, census, there's over 2 million small businesses in the state of California. Well, if you look at this room, I got 20,000 people in our database. That's who I go to first. So for you two, you're really lucky because you're on the front end of the bandwagon. Everybody else is trying to catch up. The other thing that we have here is that I brought back there for you two who actually are certified. I got a brochure back there. It's like, I'm certified now. What do I do? But so there's more than enough back there for you two. We also have, and I brought for all of you who aren't certified, a really big tool. We just developed this. In fact, yesterday before I left, they gave this to me. The secretary was helping me out. On the first part, we have a new system. It's called e-procurement. We made it, try to make it easy for all of you to do business with the state of California. What we've done is we took 4 large databases that we had, and 2 of them you didn't have access to. We put it all into one place. It's called e-procurement. It's an online procurement system. Now you have access anywhere in the world, 24/7, as long as you have internet. You have internet, you have access to our system. So basically what that means is if you're on vacation, you're somewhere else in the world, and you want to check to see what kind of contracts are coming up, you can check. On top of that, you can actually check, let's say you bid on something and you didn't win, you can find out who won and what they bid. So what does that mean for you is that when you go out the next time, you actually have a better understanding of what their pricing was and what they did before. It's good for everyone. Anyway, this brochure here, the first thing you have to do is get a username and password. So we made it easy. We show you the 5 steps on how to get a username and password. And then if you take the time and you flip it over, there's 16 steps on how to set up your profile. Because your profile is key to how we find you and what you do. You know, you tell me who you are, what your business does. So when I go to search for you, everything that supposedly that you say you do is in that database, and now I can pull you up. So if you do cement work or IT projects or whatever the case may be, you enter that into our database. So when I'm looking for somebody, hopefully your name pops up. There's something I didn't bring. It's called leveling the playing field. For those of you who want that information, you can come take my business card. And basically what it is that we show you how to get in the game. For those of you, the 98% that's not in the game yet, I can show you how to get into the game. And we show you how to take advantage of that profile. And it's really, really simple. I'm here to help. I travel the state, so if you have organizations that would like me to come and walk through the process, you can call my office. We can set up a meeting. I'd like to get a group because I'm trying to save the state taxpayer money, so you can get a group together. It's better off for everyone. But I'll walk you through the entire process. I mean, we try to make it really simple. As a matter of fact, our online certification process is so simple that you can do it within 45 minutes. That's how simplified we're trying to make doing business with the state of California. I don't know of any other system that allows you to do that. It's a 4-page application. You go online, you fill out the document. If you do everything correctly, you get an automatic email response saying congratulations. And I'm telling you, I'll give you a hint right now. I'm going to give you a couple of tidbits. If for whatever reason you fill out that application and you don't get a congratulations, I implore you right now to call that number at the very bottom of the page and ask them why. Why didn't you? And they can tell you, hey, oh, you forgot to answer question 6. It may be that simple. So don't sit there and wait around and wait for a response and wait and wait and wait and wait. You have to be active in your businesses, and that's the reason why you're here today. All of you took the time out today to come here because you're passionate of what you do. And for all of that, I congratulate all of you. And I am here because I share the same passion, just on the other side. So together, I'm sure that we can hopefully help each other, me and state government and you on the business end, make it better fit so that everybody benefits. You know, that's the reason why I'm here. Now, I know that they have a whole lot of statistics. There's one thing that I want to point out. We did a study. We went out and looked at, is the small business and DVBE program beneficial for taxpayers and for the state of California? So we went out and did a research paper. Actually, we didn't go. We hired some professors at California State University to look at the program. And this is what they found out. Oh, it's a big benefit. One is this. And this is a couple of years old, and then the numbers have changed. So, glasses don't have no film there. Anyway, what it shows that is that every dollar that I spend with you in businesses, if we happen to enter into a contract, that money circulates into your economy 3 different times to 3 different hands. So you'll go out, I pay you for doing the services. You go out, you spend it at the local grocery store, the gas station, wherever it is. So it circulates in your economy 3 different times before it actually leaves the state, you know, via gambling or whatever else, online purchasing. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, if we're doing well, your economy and your local economy as well as the state is doing well. On top of that, and it has changed, so don't quote me on this, but when the report came out, it said it took an average business 7 different tries. It might be a little bit bigger, maybe 14 now because of the economy. But it took an average business, according to the document, 7 different tries before they won their first contract. Why? Well, because of the mistakes what businesses make. You forgot to sign a document. You forgot to send in additional paper, or whatever the case may be. I'm going to give you hint number 2, or at least 2. When you do not win on a solicitation or a bid, find out why. Go take the extra step and say, call the contract administrator. Every solicitation the state has, at the very, very bottom, there is a contract administrator assigned to each and every one. So that's the person you're going to call if you have questions regarding, how do I bid, when do I bid, all the dates, whatever the case may be. But on top of that, if you fail to win, that's the person you call to find out why. Was it my pricing? You need to know that. Was it because I didn't submit paperwork? You need to know that too. And that's one of the biggest failure of businesses, is not understanding the contracting procedures. By taking the extra step and finding out why you didn't win, now you're better off to try again. So it takes an average of 7 different tries. We found out, though, through this particular paper, that after you win your first bid, you're increased almost 50% chance that you get an opportunity to win your second. That's how much effort you need to put in when you don't. But after you get in the system, like everything else, you get your foot in the door, it's a lot easier to move around. We also have in this brochure, he was saying about resources. The state of California has all these different agencies. As small businesses, what we have done is we created a database. So if you want to talk to somebody in Caltrans, EDD, or any local offices next to your businesses, and want to ask who is the buyer in that particular office, well, we have a database now that you can go to. Anytime you call that person, and you can actually mark it to them too, because their email address, their telephone number is all part of that database. But anytime you mark it or you call these people and they don't give you any kind of help, you call me. All right? And I'll make sure, 1, you get an answer, and 2, if I have to, I'll replace that person with somebody else that will help you in the future. But take the time, look at our information. It's all free. That's one of the things I wanted to point out. Free. Free in the sense that it does take your time and effort. And time is money. But the programs are there. They're there for you. If you inclined to go ahead and step forward and try to use them, you can either go through the brochure or give my office a call, and we'll make sure that you get all the information you need. Once again, thank you very much for the panel for letting me sit with them, this esteemed panel here. And thank you for allowing me to share some of your time with you today. Good luck to all of you. I hope that as I move forward, I open up the Fortune 500 magazine, I see your faces. And then if you happen to get to that point, and I wish all of you do, you look back and say, hey, that boy-headed guy in Microsoft when we was talking, all right. A thank you, a prayer would good for me, and I'd appreciate it. Good luck to all of you.
Thanks, Michael. I'd just like to ask one question before we move on to grant. Two individuals indicated that they were registered with the state of California. Or is there anyone here that is actually doing work with the federal government or has done work with any governmental type agency? Okay. So we do have a few people who've done that. So maybe if we have time a little later on, if any of you are willing to share some of your experiences, from your perspective, that might be good. But let's move on to our next speaker. Again, as I say, it's Grant Lum. He's the director of our SBA Hub Zone program in Washington, D.C. We're fortunate that he is out here to talk to you a little bit about this real exciting program that has real benefits to small businesses. Grant?
I would like to thank all my esteemed colleagues on the panel as well. And I'd start just briefly saying I would commend you all because, again, what makes what you're doing in running companies, in starting companies, is going to make a huge impact on the most difficult problem the country is facing right now, right? We are still at 9.4%. It's lowered. We added 113,000 jobs, but that's tough. I'd like to follow up Jim's question by asking how many of you currently run a business? Raise your hand if you actually run a business. Raise your hand if you're thinking of starting a business. Okay, great. And I want to follow up. There's the state programs that Mike just talked about. Have any of you heard of the federal programs, the 8A program, the Veterans program, the Women's Zone program, the Hub Zone programs? You have heard of them. And I'm clearly talking about one specific one. And again, given time and given what I actually know, I only started August 30th, so I don't know everything about all our programs yet. But my program is just one of many programs. And this may not be the right program for you. The one distinction I want to start with and make very clear is this is a place-based program. The Hub Zone, Hub stands for Historically Underutilized Business Zone. So different from your status as a veteran, your status as a woman, your status as a minority, this is purely based on where your principal office is located at and where your employees live. And what we mean by historically underutilized business is basically a poor area in the country, and it could be a base closure area, it could be a Native American, an Indian reservation, it could be a difficult development area. This is Guam. The entire island of Guam is a hub zone, for example, and we're getting an increasing number. And you talk about the numbers in Region 9, there's a lot of businesses in Region 9 that are getting them. So I'll come back to it, but I just want to give here's what I'm going to talk about. You talk about the 23%, 3% supposed to go to hub zone businesses out of $500 billion. That would be $15 billion. This may be, and don't quote me on this may be the first year we hit our 23% in the federal government. Now that's May. There's a lot of numbers can lie, right? We all know that. The problem that Mike raises is that we may have to raise it and we have to hit it then. So the problem is it's a good problem to have, but it's also it can be a challenge as well. And this may be the first year Hub Zone hits their 3%, which would be $15 billion. So it's a lot of money. We are certainly talking about. Second main point I want to actually say is that the president is very committed in ways to small business generally, in ways that far more than perhaps any administration since Eisenhower, who started the Small Business Administration, and has a particular focus on contracting and small business. Jim talked about the task force. The White House is running a meeting with the top agencies to say, what are you going to do to meet these goals? And what can we do to meet these goals? Valerie Jarrett is involved with it. It's a very big concern for this administration. So I think this is a unique time and opportunity as well in that regard. The third point, before going right into describing the Hub Zone and giving it to Joseph, is that why I was excited to join the Small Business Administration is because, and as was said this morning in the plenary session and the kickoff by Secretary Locke, is small business, starting your own company, is an incredible pathway for all immigrants, for anyone who wants to make an improvement in their lives. Clearly, from the numbers that were shared for Asian American, Pacific Islanders, has been a big part of our success. And I would say a story that hasn't gotten out as far as it should. One thing I'd like to do with an SBA is really put together a report about what difference it has made for AAPIs in this country. And Jim mentioned that I'm from the Bay Area, and my grandparents, when they immigrated from China here, they started businesses, a grocery in the Mission Street in San Francisco, a sundry store. I'm not sure exactly what a sundry store is, but that's what my grandfather told me. In Grand Street in North Beach, and a restaurant in Rio Vista, which is, for those of you who have kids, near the Jelly Belly factory. You may be familiar with that in Fairfield. So it's very personal, and that's why I think this is important. And there's a way in which there's an access that you can now have. As was mentioned earlier, I worked my job before I came to the SBA, and where I'm going to leave the absence from is Hastings Law School in San Francisco, which is in the middle of the Tenderloin, which is a hub zone. And I walk by every day, and I see the challenges that people have in that area. It's a very difficult place, and I really am focused on creating jobs where they're needed most. And these are the poor areas in this country where unemployment numbers have been outrageous even before this recession. So let me talk a bit more about the hub zone. There are basically 4 criteria to be qualified. It is a little more complicated than some of the other certification, but my job is kind of like a DMV, right? I'm certifying companies, much like what Mike was talking about at the state level, at the federal level. And the 4 basic criteria are that you have to be 51% owned and controlled by U.S. citizens. This came up in the earlier session. So in this case, at least, for a hub zone, you just have to be owned 51%. So there are opportunities for folks who are not yet citizens in having a hub zone certification. You clearly must be a small business, but that's very misleading. I didn't realize how big you could be. $100 million business, 500 employees, depending on what's called the next code there. So that's the second criteria. The third criteria is that your principal office has to be located in a hub zone. And the fourth criteria is that 35% of your employees have to live in a hub zone. And the way you can figure this out is I didn't have time to bring all my brochures and everything, but you can go to the website, www.sba.gov/hubzone, HUBZONE. I'll put my email, my phone number, and all that up here so you can go there. But you can then go into a mapping system. You can plug in an address, basically, and figure out whether a place is located within a hub zone. That's what you do. That's how you figure it out. And there are a lot of challenges involved in it. It's based on census data, and as you know, we just finished the 2010 census. So some areas will lose their designation. There's a lot of complicated rules. I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but it's a program that I don't think has gotten a lot of PR. My guess, again, many of you probably did not know about the program, but I think it can be a hugely beneficial one. I did want to at least touch on what Jim said about the fraud, waste, and abuse angle. To the extent, you may or may not know this, but there has been a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse in government. That may be a shocker to some of you. But the GAO has done a number of reports on the Hub Zone program in which they found out companies that were in the portfolio had their office as a Starbucks. The address was a Starbucks, for example. Or they were located in and the GAO also did an underground investigation in which the Alamo, right? That Jim knows this one very well.
Remember the Alamo.
Where a GAO investigator plugged in the Alamo's address in Texas and got certified. So there has been problems. There have been huge problems. And why I raise that for you is that we have taken huge amount of efforts, and Jim knows this very well, Joseph may know this as well, in order to clean out and make the certification one that's of greater value to you. And so folks at the DLD, and they aren't concerned about giving contracts to a hub zone firm. know it is a good one. So that's the value to you. And we have done, again, I'm relatively new, but I saw the incredible amount of work that people were doing, the incredible amount of resource that was put in. I wish we could get folks through perhaps as quickly as mine can, but we have done an incredible job to where now the median time to getting a certification is under 90 days. Most firms will get an answer under 90 days, which is astounding. It had been 200, 300 days. So we are starting a process where we're looking not just the ones that are coming in, but the current firms that are already in the portfolio, giving what we call full document review, making sure that they meet all these four basic eligibility criteria. And the benefit, let me make sure, so it's clear, what is the benefit of getting the certification, right? It's no use to just have a certification. The benefit is that you can get a sole source contract, a hub zone sole source contract, or a set aside contract, or very similar to what Mike was talking about, a price evaluation preference. You're basically given, a way of getting to that government contract much more easily. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was interesting. The most business-friendly city in 2010 was Washington, D.C., because the federal government is the one that's still spending money. Right? It's doing relatively well in this economy because of that, and was voted as such very recently. So those are basic things, and I want to make sure to get it over to Joseph. I want to at least say the stories of. I've had a chance over the last 4 months of meeting a lot of folks in these firms, and one of the things where even if you do not live in Hub Zone, this may be relevant for you all. There may be an incentive to have your office to get employees. I remember talking to someone from Hawaii, ran a janitorial service. And they decided to locate their office in sort of where Matsumoto shaved ice is, sort of on the way there, near the base, near the military base that's out there. What was that? North Shore. Before you hit North Shore. My kids love that place. It's a challenge, though, because in this area near Honolulu, there's greater issues of drug abuse, there are greater issues of poverty, but in order to keep employees, they're working harder. One thing they did for an employee who had a problem was that person could not get the money from their employer and get it to their landlord. So what the company helped this person do was to automatically deduct the amount from the paycheck and went straight to the landlord. And this employee was incredibly appreciative of it, kept them from getting evicted, and allowed this. And this person has been much, much better. This person has changed. She was a single mother, changed her life around. So I think those are kind of stories that matter. Another story which Congressman Roscoe Bartlett tells in Maryland is in Maryland, in the rural parts of Maryland, this company has offices both in D.C. and in Garrett County. And they said the employees, we can give you a job at $100,000 in D.C. or $70,000 and you live in Garrett County. It's $70,000 gets you a lot further in doing so. This is a high-tech company. And so that may be something that may be interesting to you all as you think about that. And the last example is another company in which the employee said, I could never, again, a high-tech company, I could never get this kind of job in the rural part of Maryland that I'm from. This job does not exist. This is why I have it. So, again, I want to commend you all for what you do. You play a really important part in this. And the last thing I would say, I also went to Cal like Ronnie, and I was there when the big game happened. So that makes up for the fact that we're so bad compared to Stanford right now. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Grant. Joe is our speaker. He's from DOD, and those of you who don't know, the DOD is the 800-pound gorilla in the federal government contracting community. That's where the majority of the dollars go, majority of the contract requirements. So pay close attention to what he said, and he brought some graphics. So hopefully, before we go to lunch, he'll excite you a little bit with some of the pictures and the slides that he's brought with him. Thanks, Joe.
All right, when I heard I was coming to the Microsoft campus, I couldn't help myself. I had to prepare a PowerPoint presentation. Actually, I did it last night, so hopefully it'll look okay. I'm going to try to make this quick since we want time to interact, I think, so that Jim can help field some questions. These are kind of the areas I'm going to go through. I'm just going to talk just enough to kind of stimulate your thoughts and get your questions going. Okay. As Jim mentioned, it's important, the DoD is important because we spend a lot of money. You hear a lot about goaling, and I'll talk about that later on as well. Well, would you like it? Okay, I'll find out how to do it then. Okay. So the DoD discretionary budget, is over $700 billion a year. We spend about $400 billion on services and supplies and equipment. And then there's a portion of that is eligible for counting towards the 23% goal. So if you look at FPDS-NG, which is the accounting system, if you will, for contracts for the federal government, these are kind of the numbers that you'll find in there that I found last night. $5.8 billion. So California is doing pretty well in terms of capturing small business. I am from the Small Business Office, so that's all we do, small business. 9.2% to Asian American PI small business firms in California, which is a pretty good number. I am, as the Director of Program Operations, responsible for the Small Business Innovation Research Program in DoD, which I will tell you a little bit more about in a couple of view graphs. But that's kind of it's high tech, it's innovation, it's all the things you heard about today that's important to the economy. That area, I think, is probably one that has more opportunity for the AAPI community and small businesses in California because it's not such a large number. It should be larger than the 2.4%. A lot of the challenges, recurring challenges, I hear, finding the buyer, navigating the rules, do I go prime, do I go sub? DoD is a huge organization, and it's like finding the needle in the haystack. And hopefully we'll talk a little bit about how to navigate that. Okay, again, just to stimulate your thought. These are kind of the questions that I get on a week-to-week basis. A lot of people selling things. How do I find a person that's interested in my product or service? And some of the common issues that I get, a lot of complaints about primes. The large companies are stealing my intellectual property. They're not giving me the business that they promised in the proposal when they submitted it to the government. Things of that nature. So I'm sure this may come up later. I mentioned SBIR. This is a set-aside program. So each year, the DoD, actually it's a federal program, but within DoD, we have to set aside 2.5%. If you combine the programs, it comes out to about 2.8% of all of the research and development dollars that go out on contracts. And that adds up to the billions of dollars. And it's, for DoD, everything that we do is about half of the discretionary spending for the entire federal government. So that's why it's important to try to work with the Department of Defense, just because it's such a large market and opportunity for small businesses. SBIR, it's a set aside. We got to spend this amount of money each year. You can see 14,000 proposals, 4,000 contracts each year. A lot of people engaged in it. We solicit through the contracting process. We issue what are called topics, which are statements of requirements. There are about 1,000 different topics in just about every conceivable technology area. So I'm sure if you're working in a technology area, there's probably an SBIR topic that will fit what you're trying to do. Recently, the Small Business Administration raised the thresholds for Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 1 is usually just a 6-month feasibility study. And then Phase 2 is where you get to develop a prototype or try to develop a prototype. There's a $1 million limit that's in the SBA policy directive but it's not a mandatory limit. So within the Department of Defense, you'll find Phase 2 contracts that are 1, 5, 10, 15, or more millions of dollars. Again, it's all driven by need. Our main mission in DoD is to support the warfighter. We have 2 simultaneous engagements going on now and a lot of other unrest, I'll call it, in other regions of the world. There are a lot of things that we need to put out there to support the warfighter, and this is one of the major programs that helps us get that. Okay, this is a lesser-known program. This is a DoD unique program. You heard Mentor Protege. Jim mentioned Mentor Protege. There's a focus on creating a federal-wide Mentor Protege program or improving the one that's already there. The DoD program is different in that it's a business development program for small disadvantaged businesses, but there's money associated with it. So we get about $30 million a year to contract with the large primes in DoD so that they can mentor SDB firms. And typically they will select the supplier, and it's all focused on improving the SDB base, improving the competition base. It's an enormously popular and successful program. I looked at the statistics for last year, and for the companies that were participating, the average increase in revenues was about $10 to $20 million per year increase, and about 20 new employees, net employee growth. So you heard about how small businesses impact our economy. This is great because it does just that. In 2008, I think it was, this program on a budget of that year was about $22 million, created 8,500 net new jobs, which on a per job basis is huge. You hear a lot about goals. You hear about 23%. I'm here to advise you that the 23% goal that's cited in the statute is an aspirational goal. So when you call and say, hey, DoD didn't meet their 23%, well, first, 23% is not a mandated requirement by law. It's an aspirational goal. And secondly, the Small Business Administration is the one responsible for actually allocating that 23% to all the federal agencies. So they don't allocate 23% to us each year. It's a lower number because we never seem to be able to achieve it. But in the small business area, our focus, other than meeting the warfighter needs, is to provide the maximum practicable opportunity out there. Because what happens if you set a goal for 23% and you hit 23%? Do you want people just to stop what they're doing because we reached our goal? No, right? So we are focused on providing maximum opportunities, and I'll show you some of the initiatives that we got going in DoD to do that. And I'm sorry if I'm talking way too fast, but we're going to run out of time. These are some of the barriers that we perceive, and we have initiatives against each of these barriers. We started last year with OPM a workforce initiative. You heard that was one of the initiatives that came out of the President's task force. We got to jump on it a year earlier. And what we're trying to do is professionalize the small business specialists that work in the Department of Defense. So your advocates in every contracting organization in DoD is a small business specialist. If you have a question or if you have a need, you go to them. You find out who it is at that installation or facility, and they're the ones that are going to help you out. Find the buyer, find the requirement, tell you what you got to do to get things done. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but we are involved in the two presidential task forces, one for small business opportunities and one for the SDVOSBs. We are engaged in several White House initiatives, one related to SBIR as well. And there's been a renewed emphasis on collaboration, interagency collaboration, so we've been working a lot with the SBA and other agencies. You've heard about efficiencies, and lately it's been in the news a lot about how Secretary Gates was going to save $100 million by insourcing. I can talk to you about it a little bit later on, but insourcing is a way of saving money, but the focus there, I'll say, because I've been engaged in it on a personal level, is that if there are people, contractors, doing inherently governmental functions, making decisions that a government official should be making about who gets contracts, about how much money gets allocated, that's got to be a government person doing it. So the focus is on getting those jobs done by government people instead of contractors, because you know why, just because the ethics issues that are raised. So we insource functions, not people. People tend to think, I have a contract, I have a person providing the support, and they're insourcing my person. That's not how it works. We identify the functions that are inherently governmental, and then we go out and we get the best, the brightest through a national competition. So that's how that works. And then where I work for Dr. Ash Carter, he's a Undersecretary for Acquisition Technology and Logistics. He has specific initiatives, 23 in total, 2 related specifically to small businesses, 1 having to do with increasing services contracts with small businesses. So it kind of offsets that. So I just want to dispel some of this notion about the insourcing is going to kill all of the companies that are providing services, because it shouldn't, except where it's inherently governmental. And then I've held many jobs within the DoD, and I was a major program manager, so I had the Command and Control Directorate in a major program executive office. Had an ACAT 1D program, which is one program had over $500 million a year as a budget. So I've worked with a lot of people, a lot of programs, and diversity is hugely important. Uh-oh, here comes the hook.
There you go. I'm sorry, Joe, so if you could just...
That's it. This is the most important. If you want to get a hold of me and ask me questions, or at the bottom, if you go to that website, we have fact sheets on how to do business, all the things that you've been hearing about today. You can just look it up. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I want to thank Joe and all the speakers for taking the time to be here with you today. We're pressed for time, but I think it was really beneficial to hear from each of our speakers. Again, as Chantel said, the resource area will be down there. There'll be experts that can answer your questions, provide you information. You can always contact us via the web. So we have a few questions here, and we'll try to get through them. And if not, we can, again, try to answer them out in that area there, or you can contact us at a later date. Okay. What is the most common reason for not getting a bid? And I think Michael spoke to that a little bit earlier as to what it is. Most important thing when you see a bid is 3 things. Read it, read it, read it. Make sure you understand what the government entity is looking for. More businesses have gotten into trouble into bidding on contracts that they really didn't understand then, didn't get a contract that they thought they should have gotten. Michael or anybody else we want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just make one comment. The source selection process that you'll find in the FAR and DFARS is very unforgiving. If you violate a page count by 1, even if that page is blank, the contracting officer is going to throw it out. So you got to pay attention to the requirements of the solicitation and the proposal submission.
Most solicitation that government entities put together, they're all in black and white. Like he had said earlier, they will tell you what they need from you. We will tell you what we want. Now, if you don't provide what we want, then the first thing that we do with them, exactly what Joseph said, okay, next. And that's one of the biggest failures that businesses have when they do place a bid is they miss something. That's why I told you earlier, next time when you don't win, find out why. So that if you know that you didn't get that page count right, next time you bid, you better look and say, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I got them all. That's one of the things is that all state or all government entities tell you in black and white what they want. It's up to you to provide all that information. So take the time, like you said, and read. Unfortunately.
Okay, obviously we're not going to get through all of these, so we'll do the best we can. Federally, are there plans to extend the initiative for women-owned businesses to minority-owned businesses? We have a program. It's called our 8A Business Development Program. Again, not to get into too much detail because of limitations in time, but in the guide directory that I handed out, there's a little bit of information about the program and website information to find out more about that program, or you can ask the experts down at the resource table. Where can we find a list of these contracting projects, especially for those biotechnology-related projects? Well, for the federal government, everything is announced in the Federal Business Opportunities website, or www.fedbizops.gov. Again, you've got that address in both the directory and in the useful links I've given you there. That's the first place to go. It's real simple to search. You can even search contract opportunities by keywords.
Also, for the Small Business Innovation Research Program, if you go to their website, you can search all of the prior topics, and you can search by keywords. So if you're looking for nanotechnology, you'll find all the awards made and the requirements and things of that nature.
So we'll just take this one as the last one. We'll find out with the conference organizers, is there a way where the questions and the answers can be posted for a later date? And is there any requirements on company types, such as CS, LLC, partners, etc., to getting a government contract? From the federal government's perspective, we do business with all types of entities, including all those listed here. Again, you have to be a business. Just to answer one question, small business. What's a small business? Small business is an entity organized for profit that is not dominant in its field of operation. And as Brand was speaking earlier, it depends on, the size is based on a NAICS code, North American Industry Classification System code. It has a corresponding size standard. One is assigned to every solicitation from the federal government, and it'll give you the associated size standards. So a business's size is judged against that NAICS code and size standard.
You can be a sole proprietor. There are plenty of hub-zone, women-owned 8A businesses that are such. The question is whether you're ready to get the government contracts.
Absolutely. Okay, so again, we'll hold on to these. Hopefully there'll be a way for us to answer these. Again, we'll be out in the resource area. Thank you very much. We appreciate you attending this forum and for your attendance. Thank you so much.